My name is Shelby Grant. I'm 27 years old. For most of my life, I believed something very simple. I believed family meant fairness. Not perfection, not luxury, just balance. Equal love, equal chances, equal room at the table. I believed there were no favorites, no leftovers, no invisible children. I was wrong. I didn't realize how wrong until a quiet Sunday afternoon over roasted chicken, garlic bread, and plates we only used when company came over, when my mother finally said the words out loud. "You're not coming to Jamaica with us." She didn't say it cruelly. She didn't raise her voice. She said it the way people announce weather changes. Casual. Final. "Only your brother." My father didn't look up when she said it. He kept slicing his chicken, slow and deliberate, like the decision had been made long before the sentence was spoken. I stared at the empty chair across the table, the one I used to sit in every Sunday growing up, and said nothing. That silence was the loudest sound I'd heard in years. 3 days later, I packed one bag and disappeared before their plane ever left the ground. But what happened after that? That's the part that changed everything I thought I knew about blood, loyalty, and love. Growing up, the favoritism was never dramatic. It was subtle, quiet, almost polite. It hid behind phrases like, "You're already fine," and "Your brother just needs more encouragement." When I was little, I learned quickly that effort didn't earn attention. In elementary school, I brought home straight A's. My report cards were clean, neat, predictable. My mother would glance at them, smile briefly, and say, "Good job, honey," before turning back to whatever she was doing. Then Parker, my younger brother, 4 years behind me, would come home with B's and C's, sometimes worse. Suddenly, the house lit up. Ice cream after dinner, trips to the park, long conversations about how proud they were of his progress. I told myself it was fine. Maybe he needed encouragement more than I did. That excuse became the soundtrack of my childhood. By middle school, the contrast sharpened. I stayed up late studying for exams, hunched over textbooks with a lamp that flickered if I bumped the desk too hard. Parker stayed up late too, playing video games, laughing with friends through his headset. When I won a state-level math competition in 8th grade, my father glanced at the certificate and said, "We'll frame it later." It never got framed. It ended up stuffed in a drawer beneath old utility bills and instruction manuals. A month later, Parker landed a minor role in a school play. My mother baked cookies for the entire cast. She praised his courage for getting on stage like he'd conquered Everest. I swallowed the lump in my throat and clapped anyway. Silence had become a skill. High school erased any doubt. When Parker turned 16, he got a car. Not brand new, but new enough. A nearly spotless Honda, keys wrapped in a red bow. The backyard filled with relatives, music blasted. The cake was shaped like a steering wheel. My 16th birthday came 3 weeks earlier. I received a card with $20 inside and a promise of dinner soon. That dinner never happened. That summer, I took the night shift at a local diner to save for my own car. I flipped burgers until 2 in the morning, smelling like grease and exhaustion. Parker slept soundly at home. The unfairness followed me everywhere. In my junior year, I was selected for the National Math Olympiad in Washington, D.C. Months of practice paid off. I placed 3rd overall. I brought home a heavy trophy that gleamed under the kitchen light. My parents drove up for the ceremony, but left halfway through because my dad had an early meeting. The next day, they handed me $50 and a quick pat on the shoulder. "We're proud of you," my mother said, eyes glued to her phone. 3 months later, Parker joined a regional dance crew. His group placed near the bottom. My parents cleared their entire schedules to attend the full 4-hour show. They sat front row, cheered loudly, recorded every move. They threw him a surprise party afterward. His participation ribbon went on the living room wall. My trophy gathered dust under my bed. When I asked why, my father shrugged.
Your brother needs confidence. I nodded. I always nodded.
College followed the same script. I earned a merit scholarship to UC Riverside that covered most of my tuition. Our celebratory dinner lasted 5 minutes. Then the conversation turned to Parker's community college plans. He barely made it in. My parents threw a block party, barbecue smoking, decorations everywhere, a new backpack as a gift. I watched from the porch, resentment simmering quietly. Why the difference? I asked my mother one night. She smoothed my hair and said the words I'd come to hate. You're independent. He needs the push. Independence wasn't a gift. It was a requirement. I worked double shifts as a waitress to cover rent and books. Parker lived at home, rent-free. When his car insurance spiked, my parents paid it. When my laptop died, they told me money was tight.
4 years ago, I graduated summa cum laude from UC Riverside.
My parents clapped politely when my name crossed the stage. Afterward, we went to Olive Garden. No toast, no gift, just breadsticks and traffic talk. A year later, Parker finished community college. They transformed the backyard into a celebration zone. Custom banners, relatives flown in, a sleek new laptop. That was the night I stopped expecting fairness. But I still believed, somehow, that adulthood would fix it. I was wrong. Last month, everything finally collapsed into clarity. Parker's 23rd birthday dinner smelled like roasted chicken and denial. My father cleared his throat halfway through the meal. We have news. They'd booked a 10-day trip to Jamaica, all-inclusive, beachfront, everything covered. For the 3 of us, my mother smiled. Not me. When I offered to pay my own way, she shut it down immediately. You're busy with work. It's a bonding trip. For Parker. The silence afterward felt surgical. I left early. That night, I realized exclusion had become policy, not accident. And I still didn't know about the $18,000. Not yet. I didn't confront them that night. I drove home with the windows down, letting cold freeway air slap my face awake, while my mind replayed the dinner over and over. The way my mother smiled when she said Jamaica. The way my father never once looked at me. The way Parker shrank into himself, like he already knew this wasn't right, but didn't know how to stop it. For years, I'd been trained to swallow disappointment quietly. This time, it lodged somewhere deeper. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a family group chat notification. Photos, brochures, pools that looked impossibly blue. Can't wait, my mom wrote under a picture of a beachfront resort. Parker reacted with a heart emoji. I left it on red. At work, my screen blurred. Meetings passed without memory. My manager asked if I was okay. Just a headache, I lied. That afternoon, curiosity tipped into something sharper. I opened my laptop and searched Jamaica resorts. 10 days, all-inclusive, flights from LAX. The numbers stacked quickly. $8,000, at least, probably more. I could afford it, but it wasn't about money. It never had been. That weekend, my Aunt Ruth showed up at my apartment unannounced, coffee in hand, concern in her eyes. "Your mom's excited," she said gently. "She thinks this trip is exactly what Parker needs after a tough year." I stared at the mug warming my palms. Did she mention why I wasn't invited? Ruth hesitated. "They said your schedule wouldn't allow it." I laughed, short and humorless. "Convenient?" She sighed. "Talk to them." I shook my head. Talking had never changed anything. The days leading up to the trip felt surreal. Packing lists flew through the group chat. Mom sent pictures of swimsuits and sandals. Parker texted once. "Sorry about last night. Didn't know they'd spring it like that." I replied, "It's fine." It wasn't. 2 days before their departure, I stopped by my parents' house to grab a few things I'd left behind. The driveway was empty. I let myself in with the spare key, the familiar smell of lemon cleaner and old carpet wrapping around me. I headed toward the guest room closet. That's when I heard voices. My parents had come back early. I froze. "Add the helicopter tour," my mom said, "and the spa package for Parker. Might as well make it special." My father chuckled. "That puts us at $18,000 now." "But we paid off his credit card first," she replied, "so he won't stress during the trip." My stomach dropped. $18,000. I stepped into the kitchen before I could stop myself. They turned. Shock flickered across my mother's face. "Shelby? I thought you were at work." My eyes locked onto the stack of mail on the counter. A statement sat on top. Parker's name. 0 balance. A lump payment, $18,000. Receipts clipped beneath it. Designer clothes, weekend trips, gadgets. All wiped clean, right before their bonding vacation. I held the statement up. "You paid $18,000 to clear his debt?" Silence. My father folded his arms. He hit a rough patch. I felt something inside me finally go still. "Shopping and weekend trips are a rough patch now?" My mother crossed her arms. "You manage fine on your own." There it was, the sentence that had followed me my entire life. I swallowed. "My laptop died last quarter. I asked for $800 to replace it. You said money was tight." "That's different," she snapped. "Parker's weaker in that area." Weaker. The word echoed. Weaker meant forgiven. Weaker meant rescued. Weaker meant $18,000 erased. "So let me get this straight," I said quietly. "He gets his mistakes paid off. I get told to handle it." My father sighed, irritated. "It's not a competition." "It's not?" My voice cracked. "Because it feels like one I've been losing since I was 6. My mother shook her head. "You're overreacting." That was it. No apology, no pause, no recognition, just dismissal. I set the statement down carefully. "No yelling," I said. "No tears. I just needed to see it clearly." I grabbed my box from the closet and walked out. My father called after me. "Don't be dramatic." I didn't turn around. That night, I couldn't sleep. $18,000 replayed in my head like a neon sign. That money could have been a down payment, an emergency fund, a safety net. Instead, it was a reset button for Parker. Again. My phone buzzed. Parker. "Heard about the statement. Sorry you saw it that way." Saw it that way. I didn't reply. The next morning, I opened my banking app. Savings. Solid. No debt. Years of discipline staring back at me. I'd done everything right. And still, I was the expendable one. At work, I powered through meetings with a new clarity. By lunch, a decision had started forming. Quiet, but unshakable. That afternoon, my parents sent flight details to the group chat. No mention of the confrontation. No acknowledgement. That silence felt intentional. Final. Parker showed up at my apartment 2 days later, unannounced. "Can we talk?" I let him in. He paced while I sat on the couch. "I didn't ask them to pay everything," he said. "It just snowballed." "I know," I replied. He looked down. "I feel bad." Bad wasn't enough. We sat there for 20 minutes, circling the truth without touching it. When he left, I knew something irreversible had happened. The debt payoff wasn't just favoritism. It was proof. That night, I packed a single suitcase, clothes for a week, laptop, important documents, a few photos. The apartment felt smaller as shelves emptied. I drafted my resignation email. 2 weeks' notice, personal reasons. Clean, quiet. At 9, Aunt Ruth knocked. She surveyed the room, boxes forming.
"You're leaving?"
"Yes." "Talk to them first." I zipped the suitcase. "Talking changes nothing. I'm done waiting to be older." She hugged me tightly. "Where are you going?" "San Bernardino. A new beginning." As I loaded the car, she watched from the curb. The engine started. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for choosing myself. The drive to San Bernardino took less than 2 hours. I turned the radio off halfway through. I needed silence, real silence, not the kind that lived in my parents' house where everything unsaid pressed against the walls. Riverside shrank in my rearview mirror, familiar exits, coffee shops I used to study in, the campus skyline fading into distance. For the first time, I wasn't leaving because I had to. I was leaving because I chose to. I checked into a cheap roadside motel that night, the kind with flickering hallway lights and a faint smell of bleach. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I sat on the edge of the bed, suitcase at my feet, and felt something unfamiliar settle in. Relief. The next morning, I toured apartments. By noon, I found it. A quiet one-bedroom, 800 square feet, a small balcony overlooking a public park. Nothing fancy, but sunlight poured in through the windows, and the air felt light. I signed the lease that afternoon. Everything I owned fit in my trunk and backseat. No movers, no help, just forward motion. I started applying for jobs that same night. Data analyst roles, logistics firms, tech startups. I tailored every resume carefully, highlighting the projects I'd led, the certifications I paid for myself, the teams I'd quietly held together while everyone else leaned on support systems. Interviews came fast. By the end of the week, I had 3 offers. One stood out. Senior analyst role, remote flexibility, 20% raise. I accepted without hesitation. Setting up the apartment became a ritual. Thrift store furniture, discount shelves, a secondhand desk I assembled myself, screws clinking late into the night. I bought plants for the balcony, green life reaching upward. Something about that felt symbolic. My parents didn't notice my absence at first. Aunt Ruth texted updates. They landed safely, Parker loved the spa. "Your mom's asking why you're quiet." I replied with polite thumbs-up emojis. Distance wasn't punishment. It was protection. Back in San Bernardino, routines formed quickly. Morning walks through the park, grocery runs to local markets, evenings assembling furniture with instructional videos playing softly in the background. Work felt different here, focused. My new team respected my input. They asked for my opinion and waited for the answer. No one interrupted. No one minimized. I thrived. 2 weeks into my new job, Parker texted, "Where are you?" I didn't answer. Dad emailed, "We need to talk." I deleted it. Mom left a voicemail. "We're worried." I didn't listen. For once, their anxiety didn't outrank my peace. Aunt Ruth visited that weekend. She brought muffins and curiosity. The apartment smelled like fresh paint and coffee. She looked around approvingly. "You did this fast." I didn't want time to second-guess myself. She nodded slowly. "Your parents are confused." "They always are," I said quietly. She studied me. "You're different." I smiled faintly. I finally stopped explaining myself. Weeks passed, then months. San Bernardino became home. I joined a gym, started hiking trails on Saturdays, met coworkers for trivia nights and happy hours. Friendships formed easily when no one expected me to shrink. At work, performance reviews glowed. My manager pulled me aside. "Your leadership material." The words hit differently when they weren't followed by conditions. Then came the first crack back home. Aunt Ruth called one Sunday morning. Her voice was heavier. "Your parents are separating." I didn't speak. "They've been fighting about money. A lot. The credit card payoff opened a lot of questions." I closed my eyes. "So it finally surfaced," she sighed. "Parker quit school." That stung, but not the way it used to. "He's bouncing between jobs, says the wake-up call came late." I listened quietly. My mother sold her car to cover legal fees. My father downsized to a studio. The house they once guarded like a fortress sat under threat of foreclosure. The safety net they built for one child collapsed under its own weight. Parker emailed me a week later. Subject line, "I'm sorry." He admitted he hadn't seen it before, that the favoritism warped him too, that he didn't know how to stand on his own. I read it once, then archived it. Healing didn't require reopening wounds. Meanwhile, my life expanded. I joined a women's professional network, spoke on panels about self-funded education and career pivots, mentored interns who reminded me of myself, hungry, capable, overlooked. I saved aggressively, built an emergency fund, started a solo travel fund, dreamed bigger. The contrast was unavoidable. Back home, consequences rippled outward. Arguments, regret, scrambling to rebuild without the crutches they'd relied on. Here, my life felt grounded, earned, free. One evening, hiking with a group through the national forest, I reached a summit just as the sun dipped below the horizon. The sky burned orange and gold. I stood there, breathless, not from exhaustion, but from realization. Walking away hadn't destroyed my family. It had exposed the truth. 3 months into my life in San Bernardino, everything finally settled. Not in a dramatic way, no fireworks, no announcements, just a quiet sense of rightness. My morning started without dread. My evenings ended without guilt. For the first time in my life, nothing was being quietly taken from me. Work accelerated fast. The dashboards I built caught leadership's attention. Forecasts I'd quietly refined outperformed projections. During my first quarterly review, my director leaned back in his chair and said, "You think like someone who's had to survive without backup." He meant it as a compliment. It landed like validation. 2 weeks later, a performance bonus hit my account. 10%. No strings attached. I stared at the number longer than I expected, not because of the money, but because no one had minimized it. No one had said, "That's nice, but..." Outside of work, my world widened. Hiking turned into backpacking. Trails turned into friendships. I learned which boots fit my stride, which people matched my pace. I hosted small potlucks in my apartment. Laughter filled the space where silence once lived. I hung framed trail maps on the wall, not trophies, proof. Back in Riverside, things continued to unravel. Aunt Ruth kept me informed, not to pull me back, but because she knew I deserved to know the truth. My parents finalized their divorce. Years of unspoken resentment detonated once money stopped flowing one direction. The Jamaica trip became Exhibit A in every argument. The credit card payoff opened old wounds, unequal sacrifices, and buried anger. My mother sold the house. The equity vanished into debts they'd ignored for too long. My father moved into a studio and took sporadic consulting gigs. Neither blamed me out loud, but they both knew. Parker struggled hardest. Without the cushion, reality hit fast. Loan defaults tanked his credit. Jobs didn't stick when no one smoothed the landing. Eventually, he enrolled in HVAC trade school, paying tuition with warehouse wages. For the first time, effort mattered. For the first time, no one rescued him. Aunt Ruth said it quietly one night over the phone. "He's growing up the hard way." I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. Growth earned through collapse is still growth, but it isn't my responsibility to witness it. My mother mailed me a birthday card. I recognized the handwriting immediately. I didn't open it. Not out of spite, out of self-respect. My father tried to connect through LinkedIn. I restricted my profile. Parker reached out through a mutual acquaintance, asking if I'd ever forgive him. I wished him stability, silently. Forgiveness didn't require reunion. 6 months after I left, I stood in my kitchen late one night, sipping tea, looking out at the park lights below my balcony. I thought about the version of me who would have begged for fairness, who would have stayed quiet to keep the peace, who believed love had to be earned through overachievement. She had done everything she could. It wasn't her failure that broke the family. It was favoritism. It always is. Here's a truth I wish someone had told me sooner. When a family rewards weakness and punishes strength, it doesn't create balance. It creates dependence. It destroys marriages. It stunts growth. It teaches capable women to disappear. Walking away isn't abandonment. Sometimes it's the only way accountability can exist. Today, my life is smaller on paper, but stronger in reality. No safety nets, no silent expectations, no invisible rules. Just work I'm proud of, friends who see me, a home built intentionally. I don't wait to be older anymore. I don't explain myself to people who benefit from misunderstanding me. And I don't mistake endurance for love. If you're a woman watching this who feels overworked, overlooked, or quietly used by the people who should protect you, hear this clearly. Your independence is not a flaw. It's evidence. And choosing yourself doesn't destroy families. It reveals which ones were never built to hold you. Thank you for staying with my story. If any part of it felt familiar, you're not alone. And you're not wrong for wanting more. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is pack one bag and stop waiting for permission.